For my second paper, what I decided to do was look at feminist theory and the ideology and how it meshes with environmental ideology. I'm looking at this idea of connectedness and wholeness. They talk about that a great deal within the book as to how the two movements actually work together through that, and how that connectedness and that wholeness will actually bring it back together. I use a quote by Bell Hooks, which I think is very influential to basically making the key standpoint in my paper. She states that feminist theory lacks wholeness, in which it lacks the broad analysis to encompass a wide variety of human experiences. I think by basically what she's stating with this is that she felt that without that ability to work together cohesively, that the movements and those within the movements were restricted to the ability to fully obtain and create the change in which they were looking for. Um, so I said that's basically where I'm going at with where I went at with this paper. Basically, what she did, a lot of things that we've seen within the book. It talks about the male species or just man in general. Um, how they basically look to occupy their position in social relationships, and also within the world by being able to dominate and conquer things and trying to triumph over these things, and the environment and women are no different. Um, the text states that the traditional sex roles such as aggression, conquest, possession, and control play a key factor in this because it's basically restricting the voice, which is going to create the change that we're basically what we're looking for. But yet, simply having a voice is just not enough. By just simply having a voice, overlooking different facets of life in which women and the environment experiences oppression, and creating this connection to the voice, to the movement, basically looking to create some sort of cohesive agenda in which these shares of basically it looks at all social conditions, not just race, class, sexual preference, nationality, or even ethnicity. We'll look for commonalities which are structured to the conflicts of hidden oppression, both the ones that are basically hidden oppression, both the ones that are hidden and the ones that are felt that not everybody sees. Most of the damage and what I've read within the text and a couple other texts that I use as key resources, most of the damage that women and the environment are subjected to and have to endure are being done so without any regard to the repercussions, the ones that are being felt now and seen now, but also the ones that are long term and the ones that are hidden and unseen. The voice itself basically restricts the ability to see hidden factors that determine the impression. For example, an individual may not know the structure of their situation. They may not know that they're being oppressed. Then there may be hidden relationships of that oppression, which basically means the individual may not know the implications for the usage or causing oppression to others. They may not know that they're causing that oppression to someone else. And that goes into a key part that one of the main key points that I put into my paper, which looks at education. But I'll get to that as I go along going through this. Basically, one of the most important factors, like I stated, was education of the individual. That's how we're going to be able to keep it resilient, is to be able to educate those. I think a lot of times within our society, I don't think that people are naive and they mean to hurt someone. Maybe they're just not educated on certain issues. But I think by creating that voice and that unified voice, we're able to get that backing to create that change. Going back to speaking about men throughout history being the ones that are quote unquote empowered and making a lot of these key decisions, it's very vital to have a voice in which has political backing. And educating these males on the injustices that are occurring will basically advance the movement. Not only will it gain the opportunity to be heard, but also be able to establish these long-term sustainable goals in which they can reach together. I picked a quote out of a text that I read last semester called Teaching Women to Fish. Basically, it says the solution is not to kill off all bad men. The solution is to help, women-loving, good men, healthy men, to set the new dominant standard for society. I think that plays a key part in this because it's very hard for me as I was reading the text and also reading text in other classes for this degree, without saying, man, I feel bad for being I feel bad for being white because, well, that comes the American, the privilege, but also I feel bad for being a male because, well, not all males are bad, but, those that make a lot of these key decisions, basically hinder those of us that are actually really good inside. But basically, by obtaining the support of these individuals, you're basically persuading them to see the necessary change to make the headway. They'll ultimately, shift the paradigm in which we have as of right now. And by creating this stronger, unified front, no longer separated by these partisan lines, sexual indifferences, economic class, sexual preference or orientation, and within that, there's going to be that openness for innovation and change through that advancement. The last quote that I stayed on here: by establishing a wholeness not just within the feminist movement and the environmental movement, change will be seen as a necessity instead of an alternative due to fear of uncertainty and unbinding ideology. One must be willing to remove the idea of cultural relativism, theory that an individual or human's beliefs and activities should be understood by others in terms of their individual culture in order to reduce the amount of judgment. I think that a lot of times that, based on what I was saying earlier, that we basically don't want to bend, the way we were brought up or the things that we think. So to be able to do that, we have to bend these changes, because some people were educated or they were brought up a little differently than others and don't, basically, I said it earlier, just don't know any different, and they don't know that they're oppressing someone else. And by doing this, the results, you'll see neither a solution nor an alternative. Basically, you'll get that removal of that, basically that dogmatic rhetoric of opposing the thoughts of universalism, that everybody has to think the same. And I think that's basically where I wanted to go with this paper, is to try to get rid of this idea that it's just going to be one unified voice, to where it's just going to be one key person that's going to be the one basically pushing all this advancement. It's going to have to be the culmination of everybody and progressing through that. I said that's where I plan to go with this paper. That's what I planned on doing. So if anybody has any questions, just feel free to let me know.